A Catholic monk once wrote an angry letter to the cardinals during a 2-year papal election. Upon receiving it, they immediately chose to elect him. He tried fleeing his election, but accepted under pressure. One of his only acts was to decree that popes could resign, and he did so 1 week later. So many Chinese women get plastic surgery in South Korea that China now warns them to get a doctor's note since their appearance no longer matches their passport. When musician Prince died, he left behind a vault containing nearly 8,000 unreleased songs, but he had forgotten the combination. Measuring 6.5 feet tall, several feet wide, and weighing 6,000 pounds, the massive vault required a professional safecracker to break into it. Neptune was discovered in 1846, not by accident, but because astronomers noticed Uranus was wobbling off course. Mathematicians used Newton's laws to predict where a hidden planet should be, and when they pointed a telescope there, Neptune was right where the math said it would be. In the early 2000s, schools in Perth, Australia gave teenage girls infant simulator dolls that cried and fussed like real babies. The goal was to show how hard motherhood is and reduce teen pregnancy. Surprisingly, girls who got the dolls had higher pregnancy rates than those who didn't. When cars were new, hitting a pedestrian was a serious matter called a motor killing. As it happened more, as there were more cars and more crashes, car manufacturers hired public relations spin doctors to invent the word jaywalker to shift fault to pedestrians for getting hurt and dying. The United States bombed Laos with the equivalent of a plane load of bombs every 8 minutes, 24 hours a day for 9 years. That adds up to 270 million bombs total, or about 100 bombs per Laotian at the time. Apple paid U2 $100 million for the exclusive right to give its 500 million iTunes customers U2's album Songs of Innocence for free by installing it on their devices without asking. A week after release, Apple gave customers a method to remove it, as just 6.7% of the 500 million had listened to at least part of it. Charles Darwin only worked about 4 hours a day. He worked for 2 90-minute periods each morning and then one 60-minute period later in the day. Before the latter, he would take an hour nap and go on 2 walks. On this schedule, he wrote 19 books, including The Descent of Man and On the Origin of Species. In 1997, 24.6% of U.S. 12th graders smoked cigarettes every single day. By 2023, that number fell to 0.7%. An Australian man had his car broke down in the outback, 150 kilometers away from the nearest town. He walked for the next 120 kilometers, knowing help would not come, until he finally brushed past a search team looking for him, who found him in remarkably good spirits. In December 2020, GoDaddy tricked employees into thinking they had earned a bonus of $650. Employees were then told they had failed a phishing test and were required to do social engineering training. After media criticism, the company apologized to its staff but did not offer actual bonuses. In 1983, an 18-year-old boy fell from Space Mountain, paralyzed from the waist down. Disneyland was found not at fault. Throughout the trial, the jury was taken to the park to experience Space Mountain, and multiple ride vehicles were brought to the courtroom to illustrate their functionality. In February 1936, Pope Pius XI received a message from Hitler congratulating him on the anniversary of his coronation. Pius's response criticized Hitler's regime with such force that Germany's foreign secretary tried to suppress the response, but Pius insisted that the message be given to Hitler. The age of piracy only lasted around 80 years. It started in 1648 after the Treaty of Westphalia pushed European powers to hire privateers, and declined between 1714 and 1723 when the War of Spanish Succession ended, Nassau was retaken, and every famous pirate had been killed or captured. In 2015, 18-year-old Julian Hernandez learned he was listed in a database for missing children when he met with his high school guidance counselor to apply for college. This would lead to him discovering that his dad had kidnapped him from his mom when he was 5. His dad was sentenced to 4 years. While a woman was mowing the lawn, a 4-foot snake fell out of the sky from nowhere and wrapped around her arm. As she tried to get it off, it tried to bite her face. Then chaos ensued when a hawk swooped down and tried to take it off her arm 4 times before succeeding. She then got help for her bloody arm. Over 80% of the world has never taken a flight. In 1912, a boy named Bobby Dunbar went missing. 8 months later, he was found with another family who claimed that he was their son, Bruce Anderson. The Andersons didn't have the money to fight in court, so they lost custody. In 2004, DNA testing confirmed that the boy wasn't Bobby.
In 2017, a healthy 16-year-old boy died from drinking several highly caffeinated drinks too quickly. He drank a McDonald's latte, a large Mountain Dew soft drink, and an energy drink in just under 2 hours, which caused a caffeine-induced cardiac event causing a probable arrhythmia. Dogs can smell your stress and make decisions accordingly. In 2009, an orangutan in an Australian zoo aborted an ingenious escape plan. She short-circuited the electric fence around her enclosure by jamming a stick into the wires connected to it, and then piled up debris to climb a wall. However, she sat on the fence for 30 minutes before voluntarily returning. In 2010, a woman at a Bangkok airport attempted to smuggle a drugged tiger cub in her suitcase by camouflaging it among plush tigers. She was caught after the X-ray scanner revealed that her suitcase contained a live animal with bones and organs. In 2013, the first known Tinder match in Antarctica happened when 2 researchers, one at McMurdo Station and another camping in the Gry Valleys, swiped right on each other. They were about a 45-minute helicopter ride apart. After the Titanic sank, the first ship sent to recover the dead bodies ran out of embalming supplies, so they decided to preserve only the bodies of first-class passengers by the need to visually identify wealthy men to resolve any disputes over large estates. Portugal fought a 13-year colonial war to keep its African colonies long after the rest of Europe had given up theirs. Eventually, the military got sick of dying in a pointless war, overthrew the dictatorship, and installed a democracy. The first recorded human fatality attributed to a leopard seal occurred in 2003 when biologist Kirsty Brown was killed by one while conducting research snorkeling in Antarctica. The animal drowned her by holding her underwater for around 6 minutes at a depth of up to 70 meters. Doctors warn that sitting on the toilet for more than 10 minutes is bad for you. Jaywalking is not illegal in the UK, and that while pedestrian crossings are plentiful, they are not compulsory to use. Ultimately, it is seen as the personal responsibility of the individual to make a sound enough judgment to cross safely. In the late 1960s, George Carlin made about $250K annually. However, in 1970, he changed his routines and his appearance. He grew his hair long, sported a beard, and wore earrings to look more hip for a younger audience. After his income declined by 90% initially, his career arc was greatly improved. Disney once tried to open a park that would allow guests to feel what it was like to be a slave. It was a disaster. In 1995, a boy was discovered with blood containing no trace of his father's DNA due to an extremely rare case of partial human parthenogenesis, where the mother's egg cell divided just prior to fertilization, making parts of his body genetically fatherless. In 1988, a 76-year-old woman was trapped in a lift for 6 days, unable to get help because no one else lived in her building. She rationed the groceries she had with her, but was only saved when her niece eventually checked on her. The lift was so small she couldn't lie down and sleep during the ordeal. Starting in 1760, there was a forced land grab by wealthy landowners in Scotland that evicted thousands, called the Highland Clearances. This was a major reason for the Scottish diaspora. The Satanic Panic, a moral panic that spread throughout the United States in the 1980s and early 90s. Despite over 12,000 claims of ritualistic satanic abuse, investigators never found convincing evidence that any such groups existed, much less committed the claimed crimes. In February 2025, a group of 8 beavers constructed a dam in the exact location that the Czech government had planned to build one. The initial project had been in the planning stage since 2018 and would have cost over $1.2 million. The original letter of wishes from Princess Diana's will about her godchildren receiving a quarter of her personal property after her death was ignored because it did not contain certain language required by British law. While filming episodes of The Mandalorian, the production crew realized they didn't have enough Imperial Stormtrooper uniforms, so they reached out to the 501st Stormtrooper Legion, a fan cosplay group, to fill out the ranks.
Walt Disney in 1947 gave permission to the University of Oregon to use Donald Duck's likeness as their mascot. Stephen King never cashed the $5,000 check that Frank Darabont paid him in 1987 for the rights to adapt his novella Rita Hayworth and Shawshank Redemption. Eventually, King had the check framed and returned it to Darabont with a note that read, "In case you ever need bail money, love, Steve." Two prison escapees from Utah were arrested by UC Berkeley police officers after they claimed to be from San Francisco by saying, "I'm from Frisco," which aroused the officers' suspicions because no one from here ever says that. In 2002, orthopedic surgeon Dr. David Arndt left a patient on the table mid-surgery, anesthetized and with an open incision, for 35 minutes while he left the hospital to deposit his paycheck at a nearby bank in Harvard Square.